Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to transition from playing ukulele to guitar. Now maybe you've been playing ukulele for a bit and you want to try something new and make that transition to playing guitar. The good news here is that if you've practiced ukulele, it's going to make learning to play the guitar a whole lot easier. With that being said, guitar does have its own challenges and it is different in several ways, but a lot of the same techniques that you use on ukulele you can apply to guitar. Just a little disclaimer, I actually started out playing guitar and then I made the transition to ukulele. However, after playing both instruments, I feel like I have a good understanding of how to also switch that and give you advice for going from ukulele to guitar. So let's go ahead and get right into this video. The first thing that we need to go over is the main difference between the two instruments, and that is obviously that the guitar is bigger and the ukulele is smaller. So here you have a guitar, you notice that the body is a lot bigger, it's a lot deeper, the neck is a lot longer, and what that's gonna mean, I'm having trouble maneuvering this around my shop, but that's okay. Longer strings are going to mean a lower sound, and that is why the ukulele sounds higher than a guitar. So you can see that the strings on the ukulele are shorter because the instrument is smaller, and then on the guitar, they're longer, so whenever I strum, it's a low sound, and then when I strum this, it's a lot higher. And that's pretty much what a capo does when you put it on a fret, is it makes the string shorter, so you get a higher sound, and then when I'm not holding on it, it's a little bit lower. My point here is that making that transition, you have to realize that the guitar is going to have a lower sound, and typically it's going to have a fuller sound because it has more strings than the ukulele, which is the next thing that you need to be aware of. A ukulele has 4 strings and a guitar usually has 6 strings. If you have a normal guitar, I know there's those fancy ones that have 12 strings. If you get a bass guitar, it has 4 strings. We're talking about a standard acoustic guitar. The transition for how you hold the instrument might be a little bit awkward at first because you're not used to holding something this big and playing it. Whenever you're playing a ukulele, typically you hold it closer to your chest and it doesn't sit in your lap, whereas when you're playing guitar, if you're sitting down, it's going to rest on your leg. And also the positioning of the elbow pit. I know this sounds really weird, but it's important. So when you're playing ukulele, your elbow pit is typically on the side of the instrument, and you're strumming like this. But because a guitar is bigger, it's really hard and awkward to try to bring your elbow pit from the side. And I feel like this should come naturally, but also I'm just going to explain it. You're gonna want your arm to rest more on top of the body. That way your hand can have easy access to strum the strings. Your elbow pit doesn't necessarily have to be in the instrument, just rest your arm on top so you can strum. The next really important thing is that you have to realize that the strings aren't the same on guitar as on ukulele. I know obviously guitar has 2 more strings, but they go in a different order. So on ukulele, you have your G, C, E, A, and then on guitar, you have E, A, D, G, B, E. You have to notice that there are 2 E strings on the guitar. So when a guitar teacher is referring to your low E string, it's going to be that top one, and when they say your high E, it's going to be your bottom string. That might be something at first that's difficult for a ukulele player to understand because you have 4 completely different strings on the uke, whereas on guitar you have 2 E's. So don't let that confuse you. To make that transition easier, you just need to have that up front, that there's low E and high E. And a good acronym to remember the strings is Eddie 8 Dynamite Goodbye Eddie. It's kind of not a very nice acronym, but it helps me remember. Typically though, whenever I'm teaching either ukulele or guitar, I just refer to the strings by numbers. So I start from the bottom and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on the ukulele, I do the exact same numbering, start from the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4. So the top string is 4, and then on the guitar, top string is 6. So if you're identifying the strings by numbers, then it's gonna be the same from guitar to ukulele. However, if your teacher is giving you the actual note of the string, then you're gonna need to learn it for guitar because it's different from ukulele. So to help make that transition easier, know the names of the strings, that way you don't get confused because it's not the same. Just because it's a stringed instrument, it's still different than ukulele. And I'm just gonna point out a really obvious fact that the frets work the same from ukulele to guitar. So it's the same understanding. If you understand frets on ukulele, then you'll understand it on guitar, because it's going to be 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, and so on. The markers are typically also the same on guitar. I know it depends on the instrument because some don't have the marker on 3rd, but you're going to have 3rd, 5th, 7th, and so on. This ukulele actually doesn't have the 3rd marker, but if it did, it would be right there. You see the 5th marker, 7th marker, and it goes so on. So yeah, the dots on the fretboard of your ukulele and guitar are just for easy reference whenever you're playing, so you can know what fret is what if you're just looking down really quick and you don't have time to count it out. Now you notice that the frets on the guitar are a whole lot bigger than the ukulele. So that's gonna be the next transition, is figuring out how to stretch your fingers over those frets to make the chord. For the ukulele, it's pretty easy because you don't have much space that you have to expand your fingers over. For guitar, it's gonna be a lot trickier, especially if you're used to playing the uke. My best advice here for that transition is to practice your scales on guitar. I currently don't have any videos for scales, but you can look them up on YouTube. There's lots of great guitar teachers who have tutorials on different scales that you can do. What that's gonna do is it's gonna train your fingers to have to reach over the wide frets. I'm actually not very good at scales because I don't practice them much, but you can notice that my fingers are stretching. I would recommend just searching on YouTube guitar scales and practicing those. At first it's going to be hard because you're not used to having that much space, but I promise you if you practice them over and over, your fingers are eventually going to get more flexible. Another thing is that you might have the argument, oh, I have tiny hands, I can't reach my fingers to the different frets on guitar. I truly believe that any person, no matter how tiny their hand, unless if you're like a child, then probably should get a child's guitar. Any person can train their hand to be flexible enough to reach over the frets. It just takes practice. I have really long fingers and I had trouble in the beginning learning guitar to reach my fingers across all the frets to make the C chord. Even now when I don't practice for a while or I'm playing ukulele a lot, I find that I'm so used to having my fingers crammed that when I go back to guitar, I have to train myself again to remember, okay, you gotta stretch your fingers to the max so you can reach all the frets. So that's really the only point that I have there, is to practice your scales to make that transition easier to stretch your fingers. Now this next thing, transitioning for strumming. Are you gonna use a pick or not? I would like to say that that is completely up to you. Over time, you might find a pick to be more suitable for guitar. However, if you've been strumming the ukulele with your fingers, I think you might find it more comfortable to just strum the guitar with your finger, whichever finger that might be. If you strum the ukulele with your thumb, index, or all 4 fingers, any of that can work on guitar. Whenever I first started guitar, I would always use a pick to strum, and whenever I strummed with my fingers, it sounded really ugly. Then whenever I played ukulele, I learned to strum with my fingers because I hate the sound of a pick on a ukulele. Then after I got comfortable with that, I came back to guitar, and now I can strum guitar with my fingers and it sounds beautiful. So moral of the story is just choose whatever you want to do, whatever you find comfortable and you like the sound of best. Going from uke to guitar though, you may find the transition to be easier if you start off by strumming with your fingers, if that's how you play ukulele, or if you use a pick on ukulele, try a pick with guitar. Now we're gonna talk about strumming patterns. Any strumming pattern that you've learned on ukulele, you can transfer that to guitar, and that makes the transition so much easier. For example, I'm just gonna go ahead and form an A minor chord on guitar and use the strumming pattern of down, down, up, down, up, because that is the island strum on ukulele, a super popular one that pretty much every beginner ukulele player learns. And you can do the exact same thing on guitar and it sounds great. Down, down, up, down, up. You can also use single down strums on guitar. Let's try a different one like down, up, down, up, down, down, up. That's another one that I use on ukulele a lot. So now you can kind of have the idea that whatever your right hand does on ukulele, it can do the exact same on guitar. So you really don't have to train this hand to do anything new if you're strumming. Finger style and plucking the strings are a whole nother story, but we're not gonna get into that today. If you're just strumming, you can use ukulele strumming patterns on guitar because it's not a one or the other thing. It's strumming patterns are strumming patterns. The last thing that we're going to talk about is forming chords on guitar if you're transitioning from ukulele. So if you haven't guessed by now, how you form a chord on guitar, let's say it's the C chord, it's not going to be the same as you played on ukulele. On ukulele, a C chord is holding down that bottom string on the 3rd fret with one finger. On guitar, if you try to do that bottom string 3rd fret, that is not a C chord. This is actually a C chord on guitar. If you're looking closely, you could probably identify that the C chord on guitar looks similar to an E minor chord on ukulele. Guitar does have different strings and it's not the exact same finger placement, but oftentimes I think of it as the same thing. So a C chord on guitar looks like an E minor on ukulele. If you play them at the same time though, it doesn't sound the same because they are two different chords. This is C, and then on ukulele, E minor is going to sound like this. Then another similar one is a D chord on guitar, strumming the bottom 4 strings. It kind of looks like a G chord on the ukulele. Again, two different chords, but they have some of the same formation. So if you think of it that way, it could help to make the transition easier because it's not like you're completely relearning something. You still have some of that muscle memory from ukulele for forming the G chord that you can apply to guitar and it won't feel as awkward. But you always have to be conscious that it is a different chord. You can't be ignorant to that fact because then you'll get confused whenever you're trying to learn songs and transfer it from ukulele to guitar because you'll be playing all the wrong chords. Then also a little bonus topic piece of advice, I don't know what I'm calling this, but another thing to help make this transition easier is just putting a full disclaimer up front that yes, even though you have calluses on your fingers from ukulele, guitar is going to be different and it's going to press on your fingers in a different way. And a lot of times if you're using Aquila strings on ukulele and you have metal strings on your guitar, it's gonna hurt a little bit more on guitar to learn how to play it. I know that's not a fun thing to hear because you probably remember the pain from learning ukulele at the very beginning. It's not like you're going to be starting that pain over from square one for guitar because you do have a little bit of build up there, but I just want to let you know that it is going to hurt a little bit, so be expecting that. At least for most people, I think it would hurt. I don't know, different people have different fingers. I don't know how big your calluses are. That sounds like a very weird thing to say, but it's true. My personal experience whenever I'm playing ukulele for a long time and I go without practicing my guitar, I'll come back to my guitar a few weeks later and I find that it hurts to practice guitar. So just be expecting the pain. I'm sorry that that's kind of like such a negative note to end on. This video could actually go on for 5 years because I feel like there's so much more that I could explain and go into more depth about the differences between the two instruments and also give you more tips, but this was kind of just a basic summary. If you're wanting to learn basic things on guitar, that's a good place to start. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video helped you. If it did, it'd be awesome if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have y'all back here for another video with me. I hope you have a fantastic day. Don't forget to drink your water, eat your vegetables, and be a good person. I love y'all. Bye.